Jean-Michel Basquiat developed addictions to hard drugs, namely cocaine and heroin during his adult years. A friend and former lover of Basquiat, Jennifer von Holstein, stated that Basquiat was a monster drug addict. Media reports have detailed these addictions originating in the early 1980s. Basquiat would deny his addiction when probed by others. His drug addiction became increasingly noticeable by the middle of the 1980s. Basquiat's behavior reportedly became more abnormal around the time, frequently becoming paranoid and isolating himself from others. After the death of fellow artist, friend, and inspiration, Andy Warhol, from cardiac arrhythmia on February 22, 1987, Basquiat's emotional well-being was significantly compromised according to friends, and he slipped into his drug habits even further. He reportedly had snorted enough cocaine that the tissue of his septum began to be punctured. Towards the end of his life, he made efforts to achieve sobriety, becoming more reclusive in the process. In 1988, Basquiat departed from New York City to travel across the United States to his ranch in Maui, Hawaii. In Maui, Basquiat planned to become sober through going cold turkey. After returning to New York City in apparent good spirits with claims of purported sobriety, Basquiat had planned to take another voyage after returning. This trip would be taken during August 1988 to the West African country of the Ivory Coast. There, Basquiat was supposed to receive treatment from Senufo villagers for his addiction to heroin. After attending an after-party following a concert for English musician Brian Ferry, Basquiat returned to his home in the early morning hours of August 12, 1988. His home, a loft on 57 Great Jones Street in Manhattan, New York, was rented by Basquiat from Andy Warhol's estate. At his home, Basquiat was accompanied by Kevin Bray, a friend of Basquiat. According to Bray, he and Basquiat had sat, conversed, and drank Gatorade. Bray had noted that Basquiat was noticeably quiet. Bray then stated he left Basquiat's home in frustration after an intoxicated Basquiat wouldn't read a note written for him by Bray. Basquiat's girlfriend at the time, Kel Inman, returned to the home at 4 in the morning and stated that she didn't spot Basquiat. At about 2:30 in the afternoon later that day, Inman checked on Basquiat in his bedroom and discovered him asleep. About 3 hours later, Inman received a call from Kevin Bray sent to remind Basquiat about him, Basquiat, and another friend attending a Run DMC concert together. Bray had called their home earlier about the arrangement at around 2 p.m. This first call, which was answered by Inman, had prompted her to check on Basquiat on the first instance. After the second call from Bray, Inman checked on Basquiat for a second time, this time finding him lying with noticeable vomit present. Panicking, Inman attempted to check Basquiat's pulse. She then called Bray and Virej Bagumian, one of Basquiat's art dealers. Bray then arrived at the home and described Basquiat to be slumped against a wall with a large amount of clear liquid oozing out of his mouth. Emergency services were then alerted to the home, where they attempted to resuscitate Basquiat on the scene. Basquiat was then transported by ambulance to Cabrini Medical Center, where he was declared dead on arrival at the age of 27. After an autopsy was conducted on Jean-Michel Basquiat's body, his cause of death was officially ruled as an accidental acute mixed drug intoxication of opiates and cocaine. The opiate in his system, in particular, was reported to be heroin. After his death, Basquiat's friends asserted that he died as a result of using heroin for the first time after an abrupt extended abstinence from the drug. This too, them reportedly made the routine dose that Basquiat took fatal that day. Jean-Michel Basquiat had a private funeral held for him on August 17, 1988, at Frank E. Campbell Funeral Chapel, located between East 81st Street and Madison Avenue in New York City. A public memorial service for Basquiat was later held at St. Peter's Church, located on Lexington Avenue and 54th Street in Brooklyn, New York, on November 5, 1988. Basquiat's public service was attended by an estimated 300 guests, including notable guests such as John Lurie, Arto Lindsay, Keith Haring, David Shapiro, Glenn O'Brien, and Fred Braithwaite. Jean-Michel Basquiat was interred after the service at Greenwood Memorial Cemetery in Brooklyn. Basquiat's death at the age of 27 has prompted his inclusion in the 27 Club, which is a popular compilation of celebrities who died at the age of 27.